Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Horn Call Podcast. My name is James Bolden. I'm the publications editor for the IHS and your host. It's such an honor to be sharing this conversation today with Professor Randy Gardner, who for many, many years was professor of horn at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, and prior to that had a distinguished career in the Philadelphia Orchestra. He retired from the CCM faculty in 2018 and returned to the Philadelphia area. He's excited to be back on the Temple University faculty. So even if you didn't get a chance to study with Randy Gardner while he was at CCM, you could do so at Temple University. Most people in the horn world know Randy Gardner through his books, his recordings with the Philadelphia Orchestra, his work at the Cincinnati Conservatory, and his many, many successful students. I never personally studied with Mr. Gardner, but I still consider him a huge influence and a really big mentor in my horn playing career. Such a warm and encouraging person to speak with, and I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Randy Gardner.
Thank you very much, James, for inviting me to speak with you today on your podcast. I want to begin with a salute to the International Horn Society. I've been an enthusiastic member of the IHS since I was a college freshman. It's been exciting to see all of the truly astonishing developments in our international society since that time, and I'm extremely honored to have served on our advisory council. I've learned so much and connected with so many fellow hornists from around the globe. Receiving the horn call is easily worth the cost of our membership dues. Beyond that, though, the list of benefits is enormous. The incredible international symposia and regional workshops we sponsor, where IHS members receive registration discounts, funding commissions of new music, offering student scholarship programs, publishing our fantastic online newsletter, Horn and More, assisting research projects through our thesis lending library, hosting a marketplace where member discounts are offered, broadcasting podcasts like this one, and so much more. Attending my first IHS symposium was a true revelation for me, opening new worlds of the artistic possibilities of the horn, learning from fantastic teachers, and networking with hornists from far and wide. Nothing can fire up a horn player like an international symposium, and the IHS continues to inspire me. So bravo to the IHS. I can't say enough good things about our society.
Well, thank you, Randy. I can't think of a better place to start our talk today than with that testament to the IHS. And, we're so glad to be speaking with you today. I guess I'm using the royal we, but I'm so glad to be speaking with you today. And thank you for taking some time out of your day. We kind of did like a bit of a pre-interview earlier this week. So I thought, we just dive right in if that's good with you.
Absolutely.
So I think pretty much everybody listening to this is familiar with you, your long career in the Philadelphia Orchestra and other orchestras, and teaching at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music for many years, and, your legions of successful students out there. But I think it's fun to kind of go back to the early days a little bit for people who might not be familiar with, how you got your start, maybe some of your early inspirations, musical or otherwise. So yeah, just wherever you want to jump in.
Sure. Well, my path to the Philadelphia Orchestra is rather atypical. I grew up in a very small town in northwest Indiana, right near Gary, Indiana. There was not a great deal of classical music in our area. So our high school band was, for me, my entire exposure to ensemble music until my high school horn teacher saw something in me and asked me to join the Gary, Indiana Symphony with him. That was my first exposure to classical music, and I remember playing the New World Symphony in my first concert with them. It was just mind-blowing.
Wow.
So, I had played a little bit of violin in fourth grade because my mother had a violin that her uncle, a cabinet maker, had made for her when she was a child. And we had a string program for 1 year before it disbanded. Then I switched to trumpet. My dad had played trumpet when he was growing up, so he had the trumpet hanging around. I switched to that. But in junior high, I was switched to horn by a person who was a huge influence on my life, a man named Jack Gordon, who was not only a great music teacher, great educator, but just a great role model as a person. And so I switched over to horn, and he introduced me to recordings of Dennis Brain. He took us up once a year to hear the Chicago Symphony, played youth concerts, and that was just unbelievable to me. I still hear the English horn solo in the New World Symphony from that performance. It still is in my brain files. So Jack Gordon was a huge influence on my life. And yet I didn't realize until I went to college at Valparaiso University that a person could earn a living being a performer. A man named John Little was the teacher of my horn teacher for the freshman year in college, and he said, "Have you ever thought about being a performer?" I said, "You can do that?" And from that point on, a fire was just lit in me. I transferred to Indiana University, where over the next few years, my main mentors and teachers were, the iconic Philip Farkas, and a legendary trumpet teacher named William Adam. They were hugely influential in my development. And I also worked a little bit with Abe Kenyaz and Ethel Merker while at IU. But Mr. Farkas, especially, was hugely influential in my life. He taught me so much, not just about horn playing, but about musicianship. As a matter of fact, I don't know if people are aware of it, but besides The Art of French Horn Playing, he wrote a great book called The Art of Musicianship.
That's a great one.
Yeah, really great book. And besides having horn lessons with him, which were fantastic, one summer I played in a festival orchestra at IU, where I assisted him as his assistant principal. And so I got to hear him every day and assist him in repertoire such as, we played on Heldenleben, Beethoven 9, Brahms 2, great repertoire.
Did he play the fourth horn solo? I'm just curious. Did it go to the fourth horn player?
It went to the fourth horn player, who in that section was actually Danny Katzen.
Okay.
Second horn of the Boston Symphony for years. Yeah, and third in that section was Eric Terwilliger, who has since had an amazing career in Europe. It was quite a good section.
I would imagine so. So, if you don't mind me asking, everybody, I assume everybody's read The Art of French Horn Playing, and kind of, we know sort of the public face of Philip Farkas, the teacher and the player, but what was it like, sitting beside him in the orchestra or taking lessons with him, where, what's something that somebody who didn't study with him might not know, if anything?
Well, he was very disciplined, extremely disciplined, and he believed in repetition as a great way to prepare for performances and also to calm one's nerves. He would say that true practice only begins after you've worked out all the problems. Until then, you're only woodshedding. But then when you finally have that ideal performance, that's when you begin to practice, and you play that passage over and over and over again. I can relate a story where we were playing Ein Heldenleben in this festival orchestra, and I'm an early bird. If I'm at a service any less than 45 minutes ahead of time, I'm late in my book. So I'm sure I was there quite early, and he was already there, and he was playing the first 4 notes of the ending solo over and over and over again, or the first phrase of that solo.
Right.
I warmed up. I went on stage. I kept hearing it over and over. We got on stage. The A was given. He took the A. He played the first few notes again and again. That was his habit. And when the solo came, it just came out like butter. It was just fabulous. But he was quite, compulsive about reinforcing those correct performances thousands of times. And I have no idea how many times he had played that solo in his career. He recorded it with Reiner and Chicago Symphony. Anyway, it was not new repertoire for him, let's say.
That was just his process, though. Yeah.
That was his process.
Yeah.
And it worked wonderfully for him. He was an extremely consistent player, and he was also really focused on the orchestral context of every passage. He knew the ins and outs of every orchestral work, not just the horn part.
Right.
And that's something that he taught me to do. It's not enough to know the notes like an etude. You have to know what you want to express, how the passages fit into the orchestral context, what the meaning is, the musical meaning of everything.
No, thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you just a little bit about Mr. Adam or Bill Adam. Was it typical for non-trumpet players to take lessons or to be involved in his studio? And if how did that relationship happen?
Okay. I was in his brass choir for 2 years at school. I met twice a week for an hour in the evenings. He used that as a platform to teach brass playing and to also teach the psychology of performance. And then one summer, sometimes students will ask me what summer festivals I went to, and I jokingly say I went to the summer festival of U.S. Steel. I worked in the steel mills during the summer to make money. But I lived in the northern part of the state, and it was about a 4-hour drive to Bloomington. But I would go down every week for private lessons with him, and they were fantastic. He taught me a lot about production and sound, and also the mental approach to performance and mental attitudes, and to focus entirely on sound, forgetting English. Put English aside. No words go across your brain screen. It's all about sound. And so he worked through what trumpet players will talk about, the Adam routine.
This is the lead pipe stuff.
Yeah, and a whole series of fundamental exercises. And I spent the summer working on those exercises. And it was fantastic for me. Eric Terwilliger studied with him as well. Mike Mulcahy, second trombone in Chicago Symphony, studied with a teacher in Australia who was an Adam student.
Okay.
And he is a great proponent of Bill Adam as well. So Mr. Adam has taught brass players from around the world. And although he had this routine that all of his students covered, he customized it to each individual student.
Right.
Yeah. So, and the thing about Mr. Farkas too, he was great teaching the mental approach to playing as well, and keeping the art primary. He taught me visualization techniques.
Right.
And at one point, I don't know why he mentioned this to me, because he didn't talk about it very often. But he said, Randy, there's one thing that's made more difference in my career than anything having to do with the horn. And so my antenna went out, Tell me about this, And he taught me these visualization techniques that he used throughout his life. And yes, they're fabulous. And I actually teach these now in, I have, you can look on my website, randygardnerhorn.com, and see a number of the master classes that I give. I call them modular music master classes. One of those is Visualize to Realize. And it's based on what I learned from him. So from those two great masters, I learned a tremendous amount. And Chris Leuba was a big influence on me as well. The summer after I graduated from undergraduate work, I spent 6 weeks in Seattle, where we had multiple lessons a week, and the lessons were of indeterminate length. They're as long as he was still wanting to accomplish something. And it was an intense experience. Okay. But I learned so much from him. He refined my efficiency, and he introduced me to, for instance, the physics of intonation and temperaments.
Right. Yeah.
So those three people, I would say, were the greatest mentors I've had. I didn't mention one person who was in that section with us in the Festival Orchestra, and that's someone who's been important in the Horn Society over the years, and that's Jack Dressler. So he was part of that section as well.
That's amazing. Well, and thank you for sharing that. So for anybody that doesn't know, you're referencing Chris Leuba's intonation, knowledge. He has a book.
Yeah, and it's a classic, and people of all instruments have read this book, and it's highly recommended.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. And I'll put. I think you can still get it. The musical intonation.
You can.
Book.
I think Ken Pope handles them as well as other people.
Okay,
but
excellent.
It's an important book.
Yeah. Now, talking about the Philadelphia Orchestra, you're going to be celebrating a pretty important anniversary. You mentioned that.
Yes, indeed. In a very few days, I'm going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of my first service with the Philadelphia Orchestra.
Well, congratulations on that. That's impressive.
That's quite a milestone for me, and I had the pleasure of playing with them just a matter of about 10 days ago. Played a program where I assisted Jeff Lang in Dvorak 7, and I played second on Beethoven Violin Concerto.
Oh, excellent.
And as many concerts as I've played with Philadelphia Orchestra, I still pinch myself every time I'm on stage. It's just an amazing experience.
Now, we talked about, you mentioning sitting next to Mason Jones. That was quite early in your career. Was that, I imagine that was quite an experience.
Yes, indeed. He hired me to be a second horn, basically, and I played with him for his last 3 years in the Philadelphia Orchestra. He was one of the icons of his generation of horn playing, a giant in the horn world of his generation. And he was also, his students at the Curtis Institute of Music, went on to great careers around the world.
Right.
And, just sitting there, I never had a lesson with him. Okay. Never had what you would call a formal lesson, but every day sitting next to him, especially being I was so young when I got into the orchestra. It was a lesson just sitting next to him. And, I was thinking about, what I could recommend as a recording to hear Mason in his prime. And one recording that I think is just amazing is his recording with Ormady and the Philadelphia Orchestra of the Shostakovich First Cello Concerto.
I've heard people talk about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. The soloist was Rostropovich, for whom the concerto was written.
Mm-hmm.
And at that session, Shostakovich was present.
Wow.
And Mason is in his prime, and it is just, it is monster playing, in all regards. It's just fabulous. So, it was just a great honor for me to sit next to him for the last 3 years of his career. And then for years after that, we would play chamber music, particularly around Christmas time,
Mm-hmm.
Until he finally decided that, he was no longer going to play the horn. But then he took up the violin. He'd always played a little bit of violin, throughout his life, but he really began practicing the violin seriously once he hung up the horn.
Uh-huh.
And you could see in his eyes this steely concentration. He had the greatest ability to concentrate of any human being I've ever known. Just this intense ability to focus and concentrate. And you could see it in his eyes when he played violin, too.
That seems to be a trait amongst particularly very high-level orchestral horn players, just being able to just focus like nothing else.
Yeah, and that's so important. Yeah, absolutely. And something that I try to teach, I try to practice, and one of the things that's helped me and something that has helped my students is the practice of meditation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? How you incorporate it into, pre-performance or pre-practice sessions?
Yeah, well, in college, I learned transcendental meditation. And since that time, I've investigated other forms of meditation, and it helps tremendously with developing mental focus and extended attention spans, which are in short demand these days. And as preparation for the visualization work that I like to do.
Okay.
Because, oh man, I just taught a class on it last week. I could go on for an hour, how to distill this in a few words. But visualizations become most powerful when a person is in what's called an alpha state. That is, the speed, the amplitude of the brain waves is in the realm of what's called alpha.
Okay.
Okay, it has to do with the amplitude of brain waves. Basically, the four amplitudes of brain waves. Alpha waves are there when you're active and alert, but yet relaxed, I guess you'd say. And so meditation is a way of getting into that and empowering the visualizations. But I've practiced it, for years and outside of visualization too. I'll meditate on the train going into a concert. I'll meditate in the morning. Anyway, that could be a long topic, and I don't intend to.
That makes me think of like the book Flow, about being in a flow state.
Yes. And there's a book that really is a distillation of transcendental meditation, written by a man on the Harvard Medical School faculty named Herbert Benson.
Okay.
It's called The Relaxation Response.
Yeah, I have that book. It's a little tiny red book, at least the copy I have. It's on my shelf over there. Yeah. Yeah. On this bookshelf here, I have, I don't know how many books on the mental game, so to speak. I also have done research in sports psychology. That's it, yeah.
I had once a faculty development grant that enabled me to go and work with one of the real high power performance programs down in Florida. Outstanding performance program dealing with sports psychology.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. I imagine that you saw some, link ups between that and the musical profession.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's one and the same. Absolutely one and the same. And when I was down there, they had no idea that I'm such a baseball fan. I'm a big baseball fanatic. But they connected me with one of their facilitators down there who was a pitching coach.
Okay.
And he talked about the transference of what he teaches his particularly relief pitchers to music performance.
Interesting.
I made that connection. Yeah, I mean, the experiences down there were fantastic. One that I could relate to, maybe people can find helpful, is that he would tell people, we have this running track out back. Now it goes through kind of an Everglades area there, but don't worry about snakes or alligators, but watch out for the wild boars. And so, okay. Well, he had the Denver Broncos there working with him as a team. And, but he had his people stationed out in this area, with sound equipment and stationed in the trees and the bushes and such. And so he showed this video of the Denver Broncos running on the track, and all of a sudden, his people turned on the sound of wild boars and started rustling the branches. And you see these behemoths, these great athletes, running as fast as they could the opposite way.
Oh my goodness.
They just got out of there. Okay. And then, he did the same thing with a group of, a SWAT team.
Uh-huh.
Now he couldn't show the video because they wouldn't allow this. But,
right.
But the SWAT team, again, highly trained athletes.
Uh-huh.
Right? When this happened, they immediately fanned into an attack circle.
Uh-huh.
And he said, the only difference is their mental conditioning.
Right.
And so he talked a lot about that.
Right. And how you respond to the fight or flight response. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting. That is definitely a way to instill that response in someone, is to play the sound of potentially attacking wild boars.
Yeah. But it was a very holistic experience, and I learned a lot while I was down there.
Well, that's fantastic.
And that's something that I've used in my career all the time.
Right.
Especially visualization. But these are techniques that have helped me through my career, and these are techniques that I've passed on to my students. Thinking of the two topics we've talked about, intonation and meditation visualization, just a week ago, I led these classes for my Temple University students. These are techniques that I want to pass on to all my students as well.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of students, this might be a good time to sort of talk about, what led you to CCM, and, maybe talk about what your teaching career was like there, and, thoughts on your philosophy, your pedagogy, and, advice for new teachers, because it's not an easy gig.
No, it's not. But I've always had an equal passion for performing and teaching. Like I say, I feel passionate about them both. And all the while that I was in the Philadelphia Orchestra, I taught at Temple University, and at the New School of Music, which later was absorbed into Temple University, and regional schools, and I've given a lot of master classes, that kind of thing. But at one point I decided, I'd really like to make this shift. I'd like to go into full-time teaching and really develop a program. So I threw my head in the ring when CCM opened up, and I was fortunate enough to be given the job. I love teaching at CCM. It was a great school. I had wonderful talent. The school let me develop the program like I wanted. I developed a horn choir, where I could really dig in and teach ensemble skills and to open students' ears to what was going on. and we worked really diligently. We also had a blast doing that. And
this is the Esprit de Corps horn ensemble.
Esprit de Corps, that's right. Yeah. And it was a vehicle for some of our students to arrange or compose pieces for the horn choir. And then I also had 2 hours a week of studio class. So for 4 hours a week, I got to work with the entire studio in these ways. And I used the studio class in a whole variety of ways. And then I also, one of the first things I did was have the school purchase 2 Serafinov natural horns. I make no pretenses about being a great natural horn player. I am not. But I, have some acquaintance with the technique, and I am a history buff. I actually started a master's in musicology at one point. But I wanted the students to have some access to a natural horn. Yeah.
That's our roots. That's our heritage.
It is very much so. So I wanted to develop a whole program, and CCM offered me that opportunity. And they also were really good about wanting me to continue performing. So I am so grateful that I've had the opportunities to play with a whole variety of orchestras and chamber music, and go to workshops and symposia and that sort of thing. And I think one of the things that helped me build the program was also taking our horn choir to international symposia.
That's right.
Because I'm exposing the international community to what we're doing at school. And that was a great boon, I think, for recruiting and continuing to build the studio.
Yeah. So, what was that transition like, going from, being a full-time member of the Philadelphia Orchestra to now being a full-time faculty member? Was I imagine a lot of it was the same. The horn's still the horn, and, B flat still first valve, but were there things that that you kind of had to make shifts in terms of the work-life balance or anything like that?
As far as work-life balance, I had a much more normal schedule, and had control of my schedule. The school let me set my own schedule. So in that way, it was more normal. During my time in Philadelphia, it's not quite the same now, but we played 4 to 6 concerts a week. And we did a lot of traveling. Even here, when we were in town, we would run out to Carnegie, or we'd run out to the Kennedy Center, or we did a lot of touring. My gosh, we did a lot of touring, and played Saratoga every August, which my family loved as much as I did up there. It was a great place to be. But it was, it was hardly a normal schedule. Okay. It was very intense, and very, unusual. My wife called it an anti-schedule. We were performing when other people had time off.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And that's just the nature of the business. So in that regard, it was different. But teaching demands a whole lot of concentration and structure. If you're going to do it well, you need to be so focused on every note a student plays that, it takes a lot of concentration. And when you're teaching a whole string of students in a day, it's exhausting. But it's also very fulfilling. It was just a different kind of schedule, a different kind of mental focus. Yeah. So it was a different lifestyle and a different life balance. And it was a challenge to teaching. It's one of those careers that is open-ended. It will take as many hours as you can put into it.
Right.
And so, I had sometimes a struggle to get my own practice in.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. How, I imagine you had to get even more efficient at practicing and fundamentals and that sort of thing.
Yes. But my playing is still, to this very day, important to me, and if I had limited practice time, it was always on fundamentals. If I could only get in an hour in a day, then it was fundamentals time, and then some music after I'd finished my kind of basic warm-up routine and that kind of thing. But you can't play at a high level on an hour a day either.
Right. Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. And you mentioned you're a morning person, so I imagine there were a lot of early morning warm-ups, or later after the day is done, kind of follow-up practice sessions.
Yeah. Oh, I would sometimes start practicing at 10 at night.
Yeah. Yep. That's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, you do what you have to do.
Exactly. I think anyone that has read your books and articles and things will kind of have a sense of your teaching philosophy, but it would be nice to hear it from you and, talk about what your philosophy of teaching music and the horn is, and then advice you have for new college professors, because it is a bit daunting when you get that first job.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, thanks. Well, I have two primary goals for my teaching. One is I want to equip my students to achieve their professional dreams, whatever their dreams are. And I also want to enable my students to be their own best teachers. I teach people, not the horn. I'm very student-centered, and I want to guide my students to establish a solid technical foundation and excellent musicianship skills. And what you'd find is that my students all have a basic fundamental technique that's common to all of them. But then I customize each student's direction based on their musical gifts, their skill level, and their personality to progressively, realize their goals. It's very important to me that they have this foundation, but it's also important to me that they have input into their direction. And so it's customizing that fundamental work to them and their needs and their desires. But a teacher in my book is really a guide and a role model. It's very important. I think I take my role as a guide and role model very seriously. And you want to be a motivator. You want to fire your students up. You want them to learn to love music, and you want them to be excited to play the horn and to make music. When I was at CCM, I chaired a number of faculty search committees. And one of the questions, my very first question of any new candidate, was, how do you motivate your students to succeed? And if they couldn't answer that satisfactorily, as far as I was concerned, no, next.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't care if they played like a god, I want to know how they would motivate their students. I think that's the primary job. And you also, you want to organize their practice. You want to give them the direction. How to practice is also one of the most important tasks that any teacher has. That includes, time management, organization of the person. And you also build on strengths, and you build in baby steps. So if you can do a little bit, if you move a little bit towards your goal, all you have to do is a little bit more of that. And so, don't expect revelations very often. There are no great epiphanies.
Right.
You move forward in baby steps. But it's up to the teacher to develop a balanced diet for the students, of repertoire, of technical studies and all of that. And to get students to think only musically, to have their entire attention on the sound that they intend to produce. You want to teach them to eliminate language from their brain screen when they're playing and have only music in their mind. And so you want to teach them how to turn all words into sound. And then, to encourage them to really develop their ears. There are two books that I'd like to recommend in this regard. Natalie Douglas Grana has written a fabulous book called A Singing Approach to Horn Playing, which is published by Oxford University Press. I can't recommend it too highly. She is a fabulous teacher of both horn and solfege, and she incorporated study that she had done, postdoctoral study at the Budapest Kodály Institute with horn playing. It's a fabulous book. And then a book written by Bruce Adolph of the Juilliard School that teaches how to develop the ability to audiate, meaning to hear sound in your mind without any external stimulus. It's a great little book. And, to develop your ears, that's primary because, like I said, that's your GPS system.
Right.
And then semantics are really important. For instance, I never use the word don't. Never. That's out of my vocabulary. You want to have your instructions and your self-talk be instructions of what to do.
Right.
And so I learned this on the golf course. When I was a teenager, I golfed a lot with an uncle of mine. We were very close. And I got to the point where I was a better golfer than he was. But he kept beating me. And he said, Randy, I can always talk you out of your game. He says, all I have to do is point to the water hazard over there. Well, guess where your ball goes? Right. All I have to do is point to the bunker over there. Where do you think your ball goes? He says, no, focus on the landing area. A little tiny spot in that landing area. Focus on that. And then strike the ball, And when I did that, I started scoring a whole lot better, because our minds gravitate towards whatever follows the word do or don't. So always focus on what to do. And when you teach, only give to-do instructions. Like Johnny Wooden, a great basketball coach. He spoke in very short sentences to his players, but there were always instructions of what to do. Another word I like to use in a qualified way is try. Because if try is like, attempt to do something, that inherently allows for the possibility of failure. You don't want that. Okay, try as an experiment. Yeah, let's try this. That's fine. Should. Don't tell me what I should do. No, tell me what to do,
Right.
So I don't like should. Certain words I transform. Something, I don't use the word difficult. I use the word don't. Anyway, but I avoid using the word difficult.
Right.
And I change that into challenging. Challenges can be stimulating. Okay.
Right.
I don't know how many young horn players have been dissuaded from playing the horn because someone told them it was the most difficult instrument in the band.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Frustration. I change, if I feel frustrated, I change that into determination. So semantics, I think, are extremely important, not only for the teacher, but for the student. Because after all, you're with a teacher for an hour a week, but guess who's your teacher the other 20 hours or so?
Yeah, you.
Yeah. We teach ourselves more than anybody else teaches us. Okay. Now, the question I like to ask students is, would you study with you? Okay. Would you like to be treated the way you're treating yourself? If not, change it.
Right. Yeah.
Another thing is I ask a lot of questions because I want to get the student to come up with the answers. Because when the student comes up with the answers, then they own it.
Mm-hmm.
So the old Socratic method. I also use analogies, and the crazier the analogy, better. Because, for instance, I once took a bunch of Cheerios and string licorice into a studio class. I handed the bags and the licorice out to all the students, and they're looking at me like I'm nuts, And I said, okay, now I want you to make a necklace out of these. Mm-hmm. I want you to string the Cheerios onto the string licorice. I go, oh, this is really crazy. And I said, okay, now this is the way we move an airstream through notes. Mm-hmm. We don't move the airstream to the note. Mm-hmm. We move the airstream through the note. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it was a visual kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
And then they can eat the experiment when they're done.
Yeah. Actually, this came up from my wife because we used to drive pretty much nonstop between Philadelphia and Northwest Indiana. That was a long trip, and we had 3 young boys. Okay, it could be a long trip for those kids.
Right.
So during that trip, she came up with this idea of keeping them busy for a while, and then they got to eat the licorice and Cheerios.
That's very smart. Yeah.
It was. It occupied the kids for a long time. And boing, this light bulb went off in my head.
Yeah. And sometimes the simplest things can make clear a really difficult concept for students or a challenging concept for students.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And students still say, I remember the licorice.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
So it works, as crazy as it is. And one of my mantras is blow a long tone through the horn. Mm-hmm. I say that over and over again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a teacher needs to understand the people they're teaching, because sometimes a student needs to be pushed, and other times you need to give them space.
That's tricky. Yeah.
You say, okay, now, I understand you need some space here, back off a bit. And you have to know the people and know how to motivate and how to, back off and let them be a little bit too.
Empathy is important. Yeah.
Yeah. And something I do in the first lesson with any new student is, I ask them 2 questions. First of all, I want to know whether they're more of a visual or an oral learner. Mm-hmm. But more important than that is, tell me what you consider to be your strengths and your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. Well, the content doesn't matter so much, but if they immediately go charging into their negatives, going charged into their weaknesses, I say, no. I ask for your strengths first.
Right.
And sometimes students have a real hard time. And I'll say, wait a minute, you didn't get admitted to this school because you have no strengths. Now, I want to hear them, because I hear them. Okay. I hear great strengths from you, but I want you to tell me what they are, because then, you have to work with a student's self-concept.
Right. Yeah.
If a student comes in and they go down the line, they say, well, here are my strengths, blah, blah, blah. Here are my weaknesses, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then you say, okay. Now we can, this is good.
Getting the ego out of the way, getting the subjective out of the way can take some time. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the self-image.
Yes.
Do they have a good self-image, or do they have, not so good health image?
Right. Yeah.
Self-image. So, and I think it's really important to emphasize professionalism, how to work with colleagues in a professional situation. Also say, okay, right now you're a professional, and you were to model your behavior on a professional person's behavior. Emphasize integrity, being a good colleague, and my feeling that it's far more important to be a virtuoso person than it is a virtuoso horn player.
Yes.
And then the last thing on this list really is an exercise I learned from Lisa Bontrager, who is also an advisory council member of the Horn Society and taught for many years at Penn State. she told me once that at the beginning of a school year, she has her students write the letter of recommendation that they would like her to be able to write after they graduate
Mm-hmm.
or when they're graduating. And then she puts it in a drawer and she says, I want to be able to sign that.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to
live up to it. Yeah.
You have to live up to your letter of recommendation.
That's good. That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. And thinking of new teachers moving into academic positions, just a couple little things.
Sure.
Number one, you need to leave your ego at the door. It's not about you. No, it's about the students. And you need to keep relationships completely professional. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep, it's a professional relationship and you want it to stay that way. It may sound, one of the things that I do, it's, maybe it's my age and background, but, I think it works well. I still want to be addressed by my students as Mr. Gardner,
mm-hmm.
not Randy.
Mm-hmm.
When they graduate, I say, no, call me Randy.
Right.
It's not that I'm pompous. It's that in my role as a teacher, I think I would never have called one of my professors in college by their first name.
Right.
I still can't refer to Mr. Farkas as Phil.
Right.
Even though he told me many times. And so I think that there needs to be some professional distance there. And just be an excellent role model for your students.
Yes.
Yes. And then you get into colleagues, the academic world can be, unfortunately, a little political at times.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially when you're a new kid on the block, you want to stay away from any situation where another colleague is asking you to express an opinion about a different colleague.
Taking sides. Yeah.
Taking sides. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You need to be apolitical in that regard. And you just want to be considerate of your colleagues. You want to be a good person. Yeah. So basically you want to treat the students and colleagues with the same respect, and avoid contentious politics. Now, at times you're going to have to take a stance.
Right.
But when you take that stance, it needs to be done in an objective, impersonal manner, dealing with the subject at hand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, really important. One of the things that I found very helpful was developing a horn choir and studio class.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then there's the idea of self-care. You can get burned out. You need to take care of yourself, give yourself space, personal time, family time, recreational time. You need to go fishing,
Mm-hmm.
You need to get some space on a regular basis to recharge,
Mm-hmm.
to, get your battery charged up again. And, there's always, the requirements of, contributions to the discipline, and such. And, a good academic is going to fulfill those obligations, but you need to sometime draw the line and say, this is Randy time here. This is family time. This
Absolutely.
is time for my kids and recharging and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But be a good person, be a good colleague, have great integrity, be a good citizen, treat people with respect, both students and your colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important.
Yeah. That's excellent advice. Well, so part of your teaching career has been, creating these very helpful publications, and for, even people that haven't met you personally or taken lessons with you, people are familiar with your books, the Mastering the Horns Low Register and Good Vibrations, the master classes. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe those publications, but then you've also got some other things in the pipeline, some publications coming out that are exciting?
Yeah, well, thank you. Uh, yeah, I have two books that are out there. One is called Mastering the Horn's Low Register, and it comprehensively and systematically explores low register production fundamentals and artistic considerations. Tone production, air movement, embouchure considerations, transitioning smoothly through any register breaks, flexibility, and much more. And then it presents a thorough music preparation to 30 commonly required audition excerpts that demand low register excellence. Important audition passages such as Shostakovich Fifth Low Tutti, Don Quixote Variations 7 and 8 and 1, Beethoven 9, the Eroica, as well as first horn passages like the opening to Ein Heldenleben and Till Eulenspiegel. And so the way I approach these excerpt lessons, if you will, is first to discuss the musical keys, the background of the composition, the context of the passage within the orchestration, your intended artistic expression, etc. What are your musical goals? What are the musical keys of the passage? And then I go into what I call technical keys and practice tips that follow it. They give targeted exercises and tips to help a player achieve those musical goals and succeed on the audition trail. And having these passages thoroughly prepared will go a long way to helping a horn be ready for orchestral openings.
Yeah, it's such a helpful book. I mean, it's, for anybody, not even people doing auditions. Of course, if you're doing auditions, this book is helpful. But just in terms of the fundamentals of good horn playing, that's a very helpful book, because you lay out breathing and embouchure and register shifts and all of that stuff. So it's not just about the low range.
No, it's not. It's not. It covers a lot of basics about horn playing, but also, a way it teaches a method of musical study and musical preparation as well.
Yeah, I like that it's systematic, and you've got these exercises to help you develop the skills you need to be able to play the excerpts effectively, and that's very helpful, I think.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I really do.
Well, I recommend it to all my students. Yeah, it's such a good book.
Oh, thanks. And then I wrote a book called Good Vibrations Master Classes for Brass Players. I would say there are two unique aspects to this method. The first chapter I titled The Foundation. In it, I focus on the development of powerful practice habits, positive mental approaches, and such, and then time management, organization, and then I have what I call time savers in there, and these are practice techniques, but practice habits, such as sing, buzz, play. The ear is what drives the horn. Okay? The ear, our inner hearing, is our GPS. Okay? And the closest thing we have to our inner hearing is our voice. And so if you're having trouble with a passage, or if you're having trouble with intonation or accuracy especially, sing the passage and then buzz that passage and then play it. And that process is a very powerful and time-effective way of practicing. And I like to say that buzzing on the mouthpiece is like standing naked in front of a mirror.
You see all the flaws. Yeah.
Everything is revealed.
This is true.
There's nothing hidden there, Now, I'm not an advocate of spending a lot of time buzzing a mouthpiece, but I think it can be a helpful tool at times.
It's the original practice hack, that term, a hack for something is sort of not necessarily a shortcut, but as you said, a time saver.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So. And in the book, in the intonation chapter, I have a chapter on intonation exercise. I have a number of pitch patterns to practice to drones, okay? And to practice through the process of sing, buzz, play. So you're doing intonation work to drones, and that's another time saver. Is when I warm up every day, I do all of my arpeggio work to drones. Okay? I put on tonic drone. It keeps my ear at the pitch level I want it to be, and I hear how well in tune I'm playing these various intervals, and it's extremely helpful to be consistent with your intonation. I have another time saver that has to do with developing a solid sense of pulse, which is absolutely essential. Absolutely essential to have an inner pulse that's quite steady. I give one exercise, for instance, where I'll have a person or a class tap into their metronome, okay? And I'll ask them to tap a steady beat with a variance of only plus or minus 2 beats a minute for 60 seconds. Okay? If they can do that, that's great. If not, and most people are a little surprised at how challenging that can be.
They say something must be wrong with the metronome. The metronome must be malfunctioning.
Yeah. Then I'll say, okay, now go back and subdivide while you're doing that tapping. And it's a revelation. Yeah. Because people learn that when they subdivide, they can play rhythmically steady. Yeah. And so, one of my mantras is subdivide, 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 and subdivide some more. And
subdivide and conquer. I've heard that.
I like that. I like that. So, in this book, I cover basically, I basically emptied my brain and covered all the areas of technique. But what else makes it rather unique is that I have skill assessments throughout the book. In every area of technique, I have skill assessments. So you can test yourself before and after you've worked through these areas. You might be able to play these perfectly well. You move on. You go to another area that's discussed. But in each area of technique or musicianship, I discuss the technique, and then I provide detailed exercises. And then I have these skill assessments. And the skill assessments come from 40 different passages of repertoire, solo and orchestral.
Yeah.
And what makes it for all brass players is I had my CCM colleagues and on trumpet, trombone, euphonium, and tuba come up with an appendix where they gave analogous passages to all the skill assessments for their instrument.
Great.
So, So those are the two books I've written. I also have some articles that you can find on my website. Again, randygardnerhorn.com.
And you've got a recent collaboration with Legacy Horn Experience. That's a fairly newcomer to the, this horn and brass playing market, but they've got some really good stuff.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. Steve Lewis in Kansas City is the owner of this. Marty Hackelman, who was one of his teachers, and he came up with this concept. So with Legacy Horn Experience, I've been involved in a publishing project with Marty Hackelman, David Jolly, and myself. Steve asked each of us to produce annotated lessons, if you will, on 6 selected Kling etudes from the 40 studies. So initially he asked the 3 of us to come up with 6 studies we'd like to address. And what was surprising to me is that there was no duplication among us. So we chose our 6 etudes, and I've written basically a page of text about the etude and how to study it, how to practice it, what the music is all about, and that kind of thing. And then I also wrote a thumbnail biography of Kling to go in this publication. the publication will be out, I believe, before the symposium.
Okay, excellent.
And at the symposium, we're going to have a panel discussion about full legacy experience, the company. And then I've designed 2 mouthpieces for them.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that process and, how you kind of arrived at the various, models you've got here.
Yeah. So when I was a senior in college, at one point, Mr. Farkas said he'd like me to switch mouthpieces. And,
did he say why? Was there a particular area of your playing that he thought could benefit from?
He didn't like my sound as well as he wanted to.
Okay.
He wanted to work on having more focus to my tone.
I see.
And so he opened this drawer in his desk, and lo and behold, there were, I don't know how many mouthpieces in this drawer, most of which were mouthpieces he had modified as experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that really seemed great to me was a modification of one of the very early Farkas models, going back to the pre-Holton days.
Okay.
And I love that mouthpiece. I played it for the rest of my time there with him, and for years into my time in the Philadelphia Orchestra. It was when I changed horn equipment that I changed away from that mouthpiece. But I really love that mouthpiece. Well, I took that mouthpiece, and I've been playing it recently because it's a great mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
I took that mouthpiece and I modified it because it wasn't quite what I was looking for.
Okay.
So Peter Pickett, who is a real mouthpiece guru, is working with the Legacy Horn Experience. We worked on modifying both the cup and then redesigning the rim. So I ended up with 4 different cups and 3 different rims to play around with.
Mm-hmm.
And I played them for people. I played them for a while, deciding, what I liked, what I didn't like. And I landed on a great combination, which I'm playing right now, which I played in the Philadelphia Orchestra a week ago. And it gives a very focused, even tone quality, top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
The rim is extremely comfortable and offers very clear articulations. So I love this mouthpiece, and I think that Peter has really hit the target that I was looking for. And then one of the other cups is not a mouthpiece that I could play in a big orchestra, because it's just when I put in a huge amount of air, it doesn't particularly like it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a great high horn mouthpiece and a super mouthpiece for playing Mozart 29,
okay,
Brandenburg, Bach, Haydn, for that kind of repertoire. It's phenomenal.
Okay.
So we've come up with these 2 mouthpieces, and they should also be ready by the symposium.
That's excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll put put the link to their Legacy Horn Experience website, but people can, first of all, they should go to the symposium and to see all of these things in person. But if they aren't able to get there, they can certainly check the Legacy Horn.
And one of the things
website.
Recently that I want to make known is that a couple of years ago, my wife and I commissioned Paul Basler, whose music I've always really enjoyed playing, and who's a friend. I think he's a terrific guy, a composer, amazing talent in the horn world. We commissioned Paul to write 4 hymn tune settings that we dedicated. Each one was dedicated to one of our parents.
Oh.
And
okay.
so as a way of honoring our parents, we have these hymn settings that Paul titled 4 hymn tune settings, and they're available on his website. They're terrific arrangements.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I know those. I'll have to check those out. I thought I knew most of Paul's music. I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, so these are pretty new, and I've enjoyed playing them and want to make sure that they're known to the general horn public.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. Well, this hour has flown by. I do want to before we end, I do want to give you a chance to talk about Kendall Betts Horn Camp, because that's such a special place. I was a camper myself more than 20 years ago, which is hard to say, but that was a while ago. But it was, it's a very special place. Just a tremendous faculty. I hear Bernard still dresses up as a professor, even though Kendall is no longer with us. But
yes, he does. Yes,
he's carrying on the tradition.
He has carried on the professor tradition. Yeah. So I've really enjoyed being part of the Kendall Betts Horn Camp faculty for a number of years. I have served as a volunteer board member for a number of years. I just believe so much in the mission of the camp and the way it's structured. It's really a one-of-a-kind place. Mm-hmm. And there are three distinct populations of horn players. Mm-hmm. There are high school students, and you basically have to be going into your freshman year of high school or older, and then you have college students or young professionals, and then you have adult avocational horn players. Yeah. And everybody is on the same level. Everybody's treated the same way. Everybody is taught with as much interest and and there are constant ensembles being formed. There's our structured ensembles. There are big choirs. There are small chamber groups that play. Everybody gets a couple lessons with different faculty during the week. It's an amazing place where it's horn from breakfast until people have to shut up at 11 at night.
I remember that rule: no practicing after a certain time, because the day's done. So.
Yeah, and people really connect.
Yes,
you make friends there, and many people come back year after year after year. And in the adult population, we've had some of the most interesting people. A guy who taught on the Harvard Business School faculty, a nun who hadn't played horn in 20 years and wanted to pick up the horn again. Interesting people from all walks of life and all geographical areas, and
it's a wonderful experience. Yeah,
it is great.
Well, Randy, thanks again. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. This is it's been a really great conversation. Is there anything you'd like to add in closing?
James, I just want to thank you for all you do for the Horn Society, the great work that you do both as a publications editor and the Horn Call and these podcasts and all the many areas in which you have enhanced the International Horn Society. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's an honor. The Horn Call podcast is the official podcast of the International Horn Society. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this series are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the International Horn Society. Copyright International Horn Society. Music by Brian K.M.